Johnny and Justin were two simple Imagineers at Disneyland until they dared to ask the question,
Hey Justin, is Disney diverse?
Well, Johnny, I'm not.
Oh no, we've angered the mouse! Stormtroopers, run! Holy crap, it's a gathering of cookies!
Now, from undisclosed locations within the Disney park, Johnny and Justin record a podcast where they seek to answer the question, is the Disney catalog diverse?
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Disney+Diversity. I'm Johnny.
I'm Justin.
And as you know, and we're joined by our special guest today. We're joined by our special guest, Angel Christmas.
Hi, everybody.
So thank you for being here with us, Angel. As y'all know, on Disney+Diversity, our whole purpose here is we review the Disney catalog to see how diverse and inclusive it actually is. And today's episode, we have something a little bit special for y'all. Today we'll be reviewing
The Princess and the Frog.
There it is. The Princess and the Frog.
I was waiting to see how long can I drag that out.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, someone, come on.
I was like, I'm gonna
So,
do
yeah,
it. Hold on.
So we'll be reviewing The Princess and the Frog and talk about that classic Disney movie. But before we get there, though, we gotta talk about our guests. So, Angel, would you mind telling the people who you are and what you do and whatnot?
My name's Angel Christmas. I am an author, a painter, a teacher, and a mom. You can find me at singlemom_insanity.com. Oh, no. That's not, because I don't have a .com. I have an Instagram handle. I'm a mom. Don't look at me like that, Parker. You know, got all kind of stuff in my head. So, I'm a full-time mom, and I'm always going insane trying to figure out what the hell is going on in life and all this other stuff. So when you guys hit me up about this particular thing, I was like, perfect, because I got kids. We watch all this stuff. I ain't feeling this movie, but I guess we'll get, we'll get into that a little later. But for the most part, I write and I paint and I teach. So those are my big things to know about me.
For sure. And for those who don't know, she's got dope books. We're going to put those on the screen right here. And she also has amazing artwork they want to drop on the screen right here. So again, amazing work, Angel. And thank you again for coming on. And like you said, again, you bring a very unique perspective as a mom and everything like that, as we get ready to talk about this stuff. And before we get into it, though, just a quick question. What is your favorite Disney property? So it can be a movie, a TV show, a ride, even a food. They got lots of it.
It's so funny. The history of Disney is my thing, right?
Really?
I teach history. So we studied history of Disney back in college, and just to learn the foundation of it, being that it was orange groves and who Walt Disney really is, and how it was really exclusive. You know what I'm saying? That people like me really wasn't welcomed, which kind of connects to why Tiana was so long in the making and so, really wanted by people of the darker hue. So
brothers and sisters.
That's pretty much what it is about Disney. I've only been to Disneyland maybe 3 or 4 times in my lifetime, and I just turned 22 last month. So so I don't really,
years.
I'm not a fan of it for the most part, and a sense of a kid's fan, I don't do amusement parks anyway, but I have been to Downtown Disney. Yeah, I've been to, I guess that would be my favorite, because they have alcohol there. So
that's true. That's true.
And
lots of choices.
Trust me, on this podcast, trust me, this thing goes to Disneyland more than I do, and I enjoy it. But the thing about it is that I hate lines. I hate lines so much. So that becomes a struggle for me. It's the same thing. Downtown Disney's ooh, these lines are way shorter. Yeah. This is what I'm talking about. So yeah, it's a lot more manageable. Manageable.
Yeah, anywhere there's wine, it's manageable.
Wait, have you been to DCA, the California Adventure?
No.
Oh, you should. When it's safe, there's a whole winery thing over there that you should definitely go to.
Thank you for telling me.
They have a winery now?
My friend used to work there. It was like an Italian restaurant winery thing.
That's what's up. That's what's up.
Yeah. So when it's safe to go, I'd say celebrate. Get some Disney wine. There you go.
Take notes. Okay, so today, we're talking about the Princess and the Frog. So as we get into this, though, just first, back to how you remember it. So when the Princess and the Frog came out originally back in 2009. How'd y'all remember it back then? Like when it came out, did you go see it? Did you not? Like, so back in 2009, like what was your interaction with the movie?
Before I go into that, I want to point something out. So like I'm really excited to talk about this movie with you too, because it's to kind of plug my other project, Nothing New, a remake podcast. We just did, one of our last episodes was on Mulan, right? So we did 1998 Mulan, and we talked about it in comparison to the 2020 Mulan. And in that podcast, it's me and my host, who's Caucasian, who's white, but we had a guest on that episode who is actually, they were on our Mighty Ducks episode. It was Gemma.
Oh, dope.
So we had two Filipinos, two people of Asian descent, talking about Mulan. And it was a very good perspective to talk about Mulan with two Asian folks with one who's not. So I'm seeing right now, I'm very much looking forward to this talk with you two, because I think you both have something to say that I don't see in the same regard. So that being said, I want to point that out there. I saw the movie in theaters. I was really broke back then, so we went to like the $2 Tuesday screening. This was right where we came out. My reaction to it before I walked to the theater was like, this was Disney's last attempt at a 2D film, and I'm still hoping. Even to this day, I have very false hope that hopefully one day someone will figure out at Disney to get 2D films back in production again. But I know it's a long shot. So this was the last. This was the last one, and for me, like as a person who grew up loving Disney animated movies, who wanted to be an animator at one point, like I was curious to see how this. Was hoping this would be like the one that would keep it going. So I had expectations with this movie that like, okay, it's either this really works and it blows up and we can keep making 2D animated films again, or this bombs and it's all CGI from this point on. And so I walked in, with my friends, one of them who's a huge Disney fan. He works at Disney. You know what? We walked out. My reaction was, it's fine.
Okay.
It's fine. But my friend was like, well, since I can sign us in, y'all want to go to Disneyland really quick and get some beignets? We're like, yes. So that's what we did. We watched the movie, went to Disneyland. He got us in really quick, went to like New Orleans Square, got gumbo, got beignets. So while the movie was fine, the day was fun.
Nice.
Like I had some friggin', that was like, I'm not gonna complain about getting gumbo and beignets, especially with my buddies like the employee discount. So,
it is
decent day, but I haven't seen the movie since. That's the interesting thing.
Question. So wait, were you really gonna get the gumbo and stuff like that, the beignets? Was that part of the Princess and the Frog experience? Like, was that a special thing for Tiana and everything?
No, Disney wasn't even pushing that at that time. It was just simply. No, but the fact that, those are readily available at Disneyland. So very easy to just, hey, again, he's like, I can sign you guys in real quick. We're like, let's do it.
Cool,
Disneyland.
Synergy.
Beignets, bowl of gumbo.
There you go. That's what's up.
Made a movie that was mediocre too. Hey, that was a fun day. But again, I haven't seen it since then. So the first time watching it since then was yesterday.
Okay.
I have new thoughts.
Yeah, I think we all do. Low key. To be honest with you, like I'm low key kind of scared to do this episode because I'm like, y'all, I don't think there's anything good I can really say that much, because I'm just like, because as y'all know on Disney+Diversity, like we especially like praise like when you do something diverse, but it's also about how you execute it. So as we're going to do this, I was like, it's not gonna be a good look, y'all. It's not gonna be a good look. So please bear with us. All right, Angel, go ahead.
I want to cut in because I didn't see it when it first came out. I had no interest in seeing it, right? I just recently seen it within like the last 5 years because my daughter's 5. So that's the only thing that really interests me about seeing it. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Question though, what stopped you from seeing it back in 2009?
That's your question.
I was never a Disney girl.
Gotcha.
I'm just not a Disney girl. I love Beauty and the Beast. But I've never been a Disney girl. Now my goddaughter and her mom, they're the Disney people. Like they have the whole selection of VHSs, Disney movies. But I've never been into it. Like it's very hard for me to keep my attention on a princess movie. So for me, it just never caught my attention. But when my daughter was born, having her see the Black Princess Tiana as representation, and we would go to the Disney on Ice, and it's like, oh, we could see Tiana there, the only Black princess. Like that's why I was into wanting to see it. Then when I saw it, I said, oh,
yeah. Low key, I feel you. So like for me, it was actually like I remember when this came out, and I was excited for it because I was like, oh, this is dope. They're doing like a Black Princess movie finally. This is dope. It's 2009. It's like this shit happened a long time ago. So for the longest time, they're like, we gave y'all the Black movie, Lion King. For real though.
Don't hate on Lion King.
No. Here's the thing. Bobby's a man though, but those are all just animals and those are lions.
Hey, listen. Let me tell you the power of Lion King real quick.
Oh my God.
That came out in high school when you on a football bus with the football team and they on there singing Hakuna Matata.
Oh my gosh.
All these high school football players singing Hakuna Matata at the top of their lungs. Come on now. Don't hate on Lion King.
Here's the thing, I'm not hating.
Slander on my watch.
That's a beautiful image.
It is
That is a beautiful image.
That is a dope image. But I'm just saying though, it is not the Black film though. It's like it's dope as heck. It's in Africa, but ain't got no Black people in it. Those are lions.
Listen,
those are monkeys. Those are birds.
We get it.
Yeah,
but no slander.
Well, it's like, like Matthew Broderick is your king of Africa. Do you really want that to be the case? Is that the really?
Yeah, good point. That's my co-host right there. That's my co-host. That's why.
Listen, and do you remember the movie Glory?
Oh yeah. Oh.
We're like, it's like why?
Don't hate on Glory.
I love Glory, but why is Matthew Broderick the lead?
Well, remember, Glory was based on a true story, so that was.
I get it, but like, and it has Denzel. It's got fucking. Listen, it's great, but.
But I agree with Justin. That's the thing though, because it's like well, again, why is the lead? But the thing about this was that when this came out though, my original critique of it was, okay, it's 2009. They just done a slew of amazing Pixar animation films at this point. Toy Story had dropped. They've done like all these amazing projects. These are coming out, whatnot. And so when this dropped, I was like, bro, why are you doing this 2D? If this came out like 1998, 1997, I'd be like, cool. Because again, I do love 2D, appreciate it, but like, why isn't this getting the 3D treatment like a Pixar film and everything like that? Because low key, that was popular at the time as well. 2D wasn't really selling like that. So when it came out and dropped, I was like, no one's going to go see this because everyone's on 3D right now because DreamWorks is also putting a lot of 3D work at the time. So I was like, this is low key detrimental to it. And it's crazy because again, we didn't even get a 3D actual Black film from Pixar until this year. We have this year / last year, 2021, which we'll be reviewing at the end of our Black History Month episodes. So yeah, so honestly, like that's the reason why I didn't go see it when it originally dropped. And then I watched it again for the first time, like in preparation for this podcast. And yeah. A lot of problems that I'm excited to get into. All right, but let's go ahead and get into it though. So let's go into our review. So Justin, could you give us a brief summary of the movie, just a brief what it's about?
Yeah. Set in the 1920s New Orleans, the film tells the story of a hardworking waitress named Tiana who dreams of opening up her own restaurant. After kissing a frog who has been turned into, kissing a prince who has turned into a frog by an evil witch doctor, Tiana becomes a frog herself and must find a way to turn back into a human before it's too late.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so
that's the plot.
Okay, so first impressions after rewatching it. Angel, you're our guest. We'll you go first. So what were your first impressions after rewatching it?
I think that the intent was there.
Yeah.
I think it was, I'm not a technical person, so 2D, 3D holograms, if it's good, it's good. If it's not, it's not, right? So I wasn't looking at it from that perspective, but I think the intent was there. I think that my 2009 eyes would have been a little bit more in finally we have a movie, then now, especially with everything that's going on in society and how we're trying to shift into this new, cultural awareness and understanding racism and things like that. it's kind of like okay, it could have been so much better. There was just so many parts of this that was traditional Disney, heroine, need the man, prince, and all that. But then there was some undertones of just, being set in the 1920s. What was the cultural aspect, and how Louisiana was portrayed, and how she was portrayed as the daughter of a war vet and things like that. So it was just a lot of things that kind of like didn't sit well with me. My daughter couldn't watch it. We started to watch it. When she first watched it, she was a little afraid of the villain because of all of the intensity, which to me, being again,
she was afraid of the prince.
Huh?
She was afraid of the prince.
No. The villain, the voodoo doctor. What was his name?
I thought you were talking about the
Dr. Facilier.
He was the villain, but keep going.
It was a lot. So his intro was soft, but then when he went into the song and dance, my daughter kind of shunned away from that. She's a child, so she doesn't really take into the big shadows and the monster faces and the growls and things like that. And I don't, in retrospect, I don't remember another Disney movie that had so much, I don't want to use the term demonic, but in a way that was kind of like the perception, if you know the history of how voodoo has been taught in American history, it wasn't intended to be like a bad guy. Like you see Beauty and the Beast, you got Garçon, what's his name? That dude.
Gaston?
Yeah, Gaston, thank you. And then you have the Beast, right? It's still like, even the Beast was not demonic, Right. And again, I haven't seen all of the Disney movies, but even when I think of Sleeping Beauty and the classics, you know what I'm saying? The Snow White, I don't remember it being so aggressively like rawr in your face evil. So that to me, it didn't sit well. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that didn't sit well, but like I said, I think the intent was good. The intent was, let's give Black girls someone to look up to. And then whoever the writers were, I didn't look to see who the writers were. I don't think in 2009, they had a lot of colored folks sitting on their writing team. So,
well, to give you the background, it was written by the two directors. And those two gentlemen were
Muscater and Clemens.
Thank you. Yeah. So
Muscater and Clemens are kind of like, they're the ones. If you were talking about the Disney animation revolution, these are the guys who kickstarted it. Like, they're the ones who wrote and direct the Little Mermaid. They did Aladdin. They did Hercules, Treasure Planet. The most recent one was Moana. So these two are the ones that, like, because of the success of Little Mermaid, and hey, like their first one was Great Mouse Detective, and I don't want people to forget that because I'm a fan of the Great Mouse Detective. Is that these are the two that like kickstarted the whole Disney animation's back, and it made sense at the time for them to direct it, in a business point from Disney, because they did all the other famous ones,
right?
But not Black.
That's what I was going to bring up, because they brought in one. So they both directed and they both wrote it, but they brought in Rob Edwards as like, I guess, come give the Black perspective and everything like that. And that's where I kind of feel like the movie kind of fell apart at. Because I agree with what you're saying, Chris. Like, the thing about it is, though, is that in this age here, especially like 2020, 2021, where we've been in a post-Black Panther era, where we've seen the power of having a Black director, a Black writer, Black cast, Black makeup artist, and whatnot, you understand why, again, it's so important to bring people of color to the project when you're doing something that represents them. Right. And so with this one, you just kind of see where they fell short in a lot of places, because their intention was dope. It's like, let's give them a Black movie, but it's also kind of goes what we talk about on this podcast a lot. What's happening behind the scenes, though? Like, you should have brought in a Black writer from the get-go. Like, you can bring like John and Ron in to like give like direction and like help out and like give advice, because again, these are seasoned vets. They've made Little Mermaid, they've made Beauty and the Beast, they've made all these classic things. But if you want to represent the Black experience and talk about a lot of things, those should have came from like Black voices and whatnot, because they would have understood the nuances of the culture and whatnot to help bring this to life in a way that would connect to the people. And again, just again,
okay, finish up.
I was going to just say, because the problem with the two is those that, like, when we get into the budget for this was, let me go to my notes really quickly. It was 105 million, and they made 270 million. And so the thing about it is, I'm sure people are listening to that at home, like, 105 million, they made 270, they made profit. Not really. The thing about it is, though, is that 105 million went to production, but about another 100 million went to advertising. So that means it probably made like 65, maybe $50 million. And for a studio of that magnitude, that's actually not a success. That's just like bare minimum or crossing the line right there. And you kind of notice that when you see how well they push Tiana today. Like, one, I think because of the way it was received, and then two, I think because again, it just didn't reach that like high revenue point because people weren't feeling it. And the thing about this is, when you look at something like, for example, Black Panther, that again, the $1 billion mark, does all these things, wins all these awards, is because again, it was so authentic and it did such a great job. So just to bring that up and everything. So like for me, like when I first watched it, that was what went through my mind. I was like, cool, I'm happy you all did this. But the thing about this is, there's just a lot of like, there's just a lot of things that are just kind of like lacking here and whatnot, and things that just like don't fill me with like pride that we're going to get into and whatnot and everything.
Well, here's a question then. Like, let's just focus a little bit on the plot. What is it about the plot that you do feel that both you feel as either like good or like problematic?
I think the plot was basic. It was the typical Disney format. Is the girl who's trying to be independent, who's independent, because she wasn't trying, but she was independent, being kind of oppressed or suppressed by being, you know, a woman. And then in this one, she was a Black woman trying to, you know, buy the restaurant, and she was kind of put down. So there's that tone of that really happened in the 1920s, you know, so the banking systems really blocking out a lot of people to try to, people of color, to try to profit or get any property. So the plot itself for me was just basic, and then meeting the prince, and then the prince, you know, kissing at the end. It was just like, okay, you know. So that was the takeaway for me. What was good about the plot? I think the good part is, again, the representation that there was this young Black girl from a solid core of a Black family wanting more for herself, you know, despite whatever was going on at the time. She wanted more for herself. And I think to me, that was it. Because that was the drive behind it, is her trying to get to this restaurant. Even though that took a back seat to her trying to become human again, which we'll get on that. But for the most part, those would be my two. The fact of it's just a traditional damsel in distress, versus, you know, and taking away from what really should have been the plot, which is not even becoming what she became, but really using that struggle of the time to be the actual story.
I agree, because for me, like literally as the movie started off, because again, I've never seen it before. So I'm like, oh, I've heard before, like, oh, she's trying to open a restaurant or something like that. I'm like, cool. But the movie opens up with like, oh, wait, she's The Help? And I immediately was like, wait, am I watching The Help right now? Like, where's Octavia at? And literally that was like the opening scene. I'm like, this is not a good look, y'all. This is not a good look. Like, I understand you want to be authentic, but I was looking like every other princess, like Jasmine gets Agrabah, Ariel gets Atlantis, Tiana gets the hood. And I'm like, no, come on here. It's like we can kind of like build her up and like do something better here. But I was like, that was like a little bit disappointing in a way. So that was, again, I understand you want to be like authentic to it, but I'm like, y'all could have like done a little bit better there. The other problem with it is, though, is that like Tiana's not the driving force of the story. The thing about it is, though, is that she doesn't really have an arc. Like the problem with it is, though, is that the prince, what's his name, Prince David?
Yeah.
Like he has an arc here because he comes in as this like shallow dude and everything like that, and all these different things. And so his whole plot arc there is like he becomes a better person. And so the story is mostly driven by him. It's around him in a way. And Tiana's almost a background character in her own story, which I'm like, okay, this is just bad, y'all. Why are y'all doing this? And then in addition to that, though, like again, like what does she learn by the story? Her dad tells her at the beginning, is like, okay, again, we're in spoilers now, y'all, because y'all know this movie came out years ago. So
spoiler alert, I guess, if you haven't seen this,
like, you know,
11-year-old movie,
exactly. We don't want to hear this in the comments.
12-year-old movie,
exactly, spoilers. But the thing about this is that like her dad tells us always remember what's important. And so again, like work hard after your dreams, you know, put the best foot effort, which is dope. Those are dope concepts and lessons to teach kids. But it's like always remember what's important. Something like, all right, cool, always remember what's important, family. But then then the movie's like always remember what's important. It's like, no, get a man. I'm like, no, this is not the lesson she needs to be learning right here. It's like this is not for not to go. Chris, what you saying?
It was so many people telling her, you shouldn't do that. Don't worry about your dreams. Don't worry about you. Settle down. Even the mom, when she finally got the place, that was the undertone of talk to her. Like, why are you doing this? You need to be settling down and getting a family, and I want grandkids and all this stuff like that. I'm supporting you.
And that's the thing.
That is kind of one of the general problems with Tiana as a character. I agree. Is that like the whole movie, like early on in the movie, her father points out the fact that like there's an interesting twist on the make a wish upon a star thing, right? Like and her father's going, you can wish, nothing wrong with wishing, but also you have to work to get there. And listen, that sentiment's great. That's a great thing to point out, and that is definitely the 21st century look at the Disney stuff, which is you can wish all you want, and but the reality is you can work for your wishes. I thought that was fine, but the problem with the movie is that the movie doesn't know what that lesson means for Tiana. Like there's a big number at the end, right, where I forgot the name of the other witch they met at the end of the movie. I'm blanking on her name right now.
What was her name? Go ahead. I'll find it. Maodi.
Thank you. Maodi, yeah. So there's a whole number, giant dance number with her. And this whole thing, and you think the end result is going to lead to this and this. And then it ends with Tiana going that's why I'm going to work harder for my restaurant. And then everyone looks really disappointed.
Right.
And it's okay, so what's the lesson? You know what I mean? Yeah. That's what I got lost. I went, okay, so what do you want her to learn? And is it what Johnny brought up? And if that's the case, whoops, that's a giant misstep on what you're trying to explain. And that's a mixed message thing where it's do you want her to have this thing? And there is, again, nothing wrong with her working. Yeah, maybe one element is the fact that she might be working too hard to not appreciate the life that, the life with friends and her mom. But then sadly, the equation for Disney is and marriage.
Because that's their traditional flatline, right? Is at the end, you become the pretty princess because you kissed this guy and he's brought you into this beautiful life. Just to touch off what you're saying about what the dad is telling her, you can wish, but you got to work hard. That's a Black thing. Yeah. If you think about the South, and at the time, we couldn't dream. We could dream, but we knew that we had to work 20 times harder than the next person. And the fact of it setting up that the mom is a seamstress for this big, wealthy white family, you know what I'm saying? And she's going home. So it all kind of translates into what we as Black people have been told or had been told at that time, that you can have all these visions and dreams, but you still got to work hard. And and again, the whole movie is again, you get into the sexist part, right? The feminism of it, of her wanting to be independent and having her own, but everyone continuing to drive her into, no, you need to have a family. Like you're saying, even with the big hoopla, which, Mama Odie being the opposite of the voodoo doctor, you would think she'd come in and say it's all in you. And truthfully, when I saw that part, I was thinking about The Wiz. I was thinking about
damn.
Came out and was baby, it was all in you the whole time. You know what I'm saying?
That would have been better. That would be better.
Like you said, she didn't get it, and everyone's disappointed. So what does that say to little girls who's no, I'm gonna work hard? Oh no, girl, that's not what you're supposed to be doing. So I completely understand with where you're coming from, but that piece there is one of those cultural things that Black people have been told for generations. It's you can wish all you want, but you need to work hard. You always have to work hard.
Just pick up because my father said the same thing. It was God helps those who help themselves. That was the lesson he taught me growing up. It's you can want this, but you're going to get it if you help yourself. And God's got your back, but you got to work towards. That was the way he told me that same principle, same lesson. And to go back to the problems of the plot, though, that's where I feel it kind of fell apart at, because I'm that's actually a good lesson. But the thing about it is, though, if he says, remember what's important, and you start ignoring your family, not going after a man, I think that's a much better movie. Because, for example, I'm not sure if y'all have heard of Edna Lewis. Edna Lewis is this like pioneer chef, and she's one of the most famous like black chefs who brought soul food to like the mainstream and whatnot. Like she left the South, went to New York City, opened up her own restaurant, a restaurateur. She's put out books that are like just beautiful. Like her recipes are written like poems, and she's really respected in the culinary community. But I'm like, you low key could have taken Tiana and kind of code Edna's story through her. We have her go to New York. She's having to struggle and all this kind of stuff. And maybe there's a moment where like, yo, mom's needs you, or blah, blah, blah's happening back home. And so she has to remember, like, I'm going after my dream, but my dream means nothing without my family there to be realizing with me. That's a much better message, a better story. Versus this, where it's like, nah, son, it's like, I'm sorry, you like, if I had a daughter, I wouldn't want her to watch this movie. I'm like, you don't need a man to be successful. You don't need a man to complete your life. Like, you complete your life.
Right.
You go after these things. Your family, we just together. And so, yeah. I'm sorry, Justin. Go ahead.
So, no, here's an interesting thing I want to ask you then. Like both of you was like, so as you brought up the fact that like, you know, like you have to work hard for your dreams. That's definitely from what you said. That's what you were told as part of the black community, and like that's what you're growing up with. So okay, so it's this weird case of like, this is where I'm like fascinated by this movie in a positive and negative fashion. Like, you have one element where like that is authentic to your experience and you saw that and went, I know that. Then the Disneyification comes in and mucks it up and makes it confusing. You know, in a way you can make, let's just theorize this. Rob Edwards brought this part. That's that part of the story. Writer Rob Edwards, he brought the I experienced this. And then Musgrave Clemens and Disney were like, got it. But then what if we include that's what it feels like to me. And then that's like when this is kind of again a situation when I was watching the 2020 Mulan. And even though I'm not Chinese, you know, I'm Asian American, representation, still feel it and understand it. With 2020 Mulan, it feels like they understood an element of Asian culture, but they couldn't help themselves and did an Americanized Disney thing right with it. It's butting heads.
Yeah,
it's butting heads to the actual message. And if you actually did any research of Chinese history or Chinese like mythology, specifically on the Mulan story, that movie utterly doesn't understand it, you know. And what I'm finding fascinating here with the talk is that like it seems like when Princess and the Frog takes a step forward of getting something kind of interesting or right, can't help itself because you're bringing in two famous Disney white directors. They keep doing this.
Exactly. I want to add also, I think, you know what, let's go, I'll wait till we get to the characters. I don't want to.
No, yeah.
Well, I mean, we can get there now, though, because when we originally talked about this, Chris, because before I watched this movie, before we even were going to review it, it was a conversation me and you were having about it. You're like, ooh, that movie's not good. I was like, for real? You were bringing up this point about the changing of her to a frog and everything like that. Could you like elaborate to our audience, explain like what was problematic about that?
Well, first off, she's a girl for a woman for 30 minutes because I had to mark my time. It was 30 minutes.
I did the same thing.
30 minutes. And then for the rest of the movie, which was about an hour, she was a frog. And they both were frogs. So I was already confused, like, where is what's happening, right? So then and again, there was so many problems with the characters. Just the fact, okay, being a frog was the big thing, but why does he have to be Prince Naveen? And then he's not black. So I had to look at where he was from, which was Maldonia.
Which is a fake country.
A real life mix of Macedonia and the Maldives, which is which was fine, right?
Yeah.
Why couldn't he be a black man?
Yep.
Why couldn't he just be black, right? You know what I'm saying? And then again, going back to the plot, the whole story, she didn't have to be a frog. It could have been just, him being a rich, wealthy black man, that kind of, I worked my hardest and, whatever. And you need to work hard too. And then him seeing her struggle through doing whatever, I don't know. But the fact that the prince is a prince, and then he's not even a black prince. He's coming in out of nowhere with this childlike grandeur of life. And you know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't get that. That really just turned me off because I understand they're 1920s French New Orleans and all this stuff, but it just didn't move me. And it made me feel bad for black men because I'm like, where's the Black? You're in New Orleans. You're in the heart of the South, and here you are. You don't have the great representation of a Black man. No. And that, to me, if you have a strong female lead, but there's not a strong Black male lead outside of the voodoo prince or the voodoo doctor, you know, to me, that's an issue. I don't think the formula is going to work, because, you know, you got to have that unit. It's like Moana and Maui. You know what I'm saying? It's a balance of the two. And I don't think that him being Prince Naveen coming in to even support her vision, right? Her vision for the restaurant. He was even like, that doesn't make any sense. Don't even do that or whatnot. So I think just having that balance there was missing in the characters.
To piggyback off that, I totally agree with you, because that was like the thing I watched too, because I was like, as soon as I saw him, I was like, the heck? I was like, let me look this up really quickly. What is this brother right here? I was like, oh, he's not a brother. And the thing about this, though, it was just like super disappointing, because like it's so like, if you think about some of the most classic Black films that are popular in Black culture, they represent Black kings. Like Coming to America, we got Prince Hakeem. And Prince Hakeem somehow looking so dope. Eddie Murphy with that fly cut and everything like that, looking smooth as butter. And then you think about like Black Panther, you got Wakanda forever.
Right.
T'Challa, rest in peace, Chadwick. But the thing about this, though, is that, like, again, we got these representations of this African royalty. And so by you not putting them there, it's like you're saying to us, like, we don't have kings and queens.
Right.
Like, dude, we are literally descendants from kings and queens throughout our entire continent of Africa. There's a bunch of countries within Africa which you could have went and got from and brought in like a country, a king, and all these different things like that, or made your own, as we saw with like Coming to America with Black Panther. But instead, you did this, and it's just like, dude, like, to Christmas's point, it's like a slap in the face of Black men. It's like, we're not good enough to be with Tiana. We're not good enough to be in this film and have representation, because our representation thus far is like her dad who dies, the chef who downs her dreams, and the little boy who's getting a shuffle on the streets. He had moves. That was a young Chris Brown right there.
That's come on, man.
Yeah, sorry. That was a young who dances well. That was a young Trey Songz right there. Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry. And then the voodoo. So again, we're all pretty much portrayed as like as villains. Half of us are portrayed as villains here, which kind of sucks. And so that was just terrible. And then again, like the whole thing about like Tiana being changed to a frog, I totally agree as well, because there's power in seeing representation, seeing us overcome these things. It's like, oh, I can do that too, versus watching a frog do it. And then like one of the things that got me is, and then just I'll let you go ahead and talk about characters from your viewpoint, was like, dude, this is a female-driven story, but we only got 3 females in this movie. And that was a huge problem for me, because I was thinking about like the Bechdel test and whatnot. I literally had to take a note and like write this down. Like, we have all these male characters, but we only got so many female characters. Like, okay, so as far as men we got the dad, 1. We got the prince, 2. We got his evil assistant, 3. We got the cooks that make fun of her, 4. I'm just going to people have speaking lines. The voodoo doctor, 5. We had Big Daddy, which is uncomfortably called in a Disney film. I'm saying, like, I just felt uncomfortable by that. And then we get into animalphobic things. We got the gator, the firefly, and you kind of go from there. And like even like, you know, the other gators that show up and everything like that, and 3 gator captors who show up. So again, there's a bunch of men right here. But how many women we have? We have Tiana, we have her mom, we have Charlotte, and then we get Mama Odie later on. So we got 4. Okay. And so the thing about it is, so in here, we don't even have a balance of female representation and a female-driven story. Right. It was like, what's happening right there? And the saw these is a simple fix. Why couldn't that be a female character? Right. Why couldn't the father be a female character? Those are just simple switches right there. But again, it goes back to what we were talking about those writers earlier, where you're not thinking about this. Because here's the thing, bringing in Rob is dope. But here's the thing, though, we talk about, you need to bring people like that in from the beginning to craft these stories. But if you're also tell a story of a woman, it should have maybe been a Black woman who's coming in to tell the story as well. Because that's where things get kind of... And then I know this is my last point I'm gonna bring up here. And I'm sorry, Justin, because it's coming to my mind right now. It's also keep going. The 1920s New Orleans, and so we keep seeing this wavy hair. But I'm like, bruh, where's the rest of our hair at though? Where's our clothes? Where's our fades? Where's our cuts? Where's all these other things? Because in a way, you're denying our Black heritage right there, because our hair is a part of our identity. For so many years, we've been told that you can't have Black hair and be successful. You had it permed out. You had to do all these different things to it. And so to be in New Orleans and only see that one hairstyle over and over again, the wavy hair on every like Black person that was there, it was like, it was super disappointing. So like character-wise, I felt that I had a lot of problems. And then going to like, so yeah, but Justin, you go ahead, sir.
Agree on both your accounts. No disagreement here. So I'll expand on the other characters we haven't talked about yet. I will go into Luis, the neurotic trumpeter alligator, and Ray, who is the Cajun Firefly. And okay, so here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. It's by Disney law, especially since 1989, that you need a minimum of 2 cartoon animal sidekick characters. Minimum 2. Whether they talk or not is debatable, but you have to have 2. And like, it's one of those cases where the only other Luis, who is the only other actor besides Keith David, who plays Dr. Facilier, he's the only other character voiced by a black man. And I love it. Always will love Keith David. But like, the only other person played by a black man is Luis the alligator.
Mm-hmm.
The freaking alligator.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jim Cummings, Mr. Winnie the Pooh, Darkwing Duck is the Cajun Firefly. And when it's one of those cases where, like, when I watched the movie back then, and even yesterday, they came up and I went, nothing. I got nothing out of them. I just felt like, in terms of, like I said, like they felt like mandatory Disney characters. We need a funny alligator. We need a funny firefly, because those are in New Orleans, I guess. And we need them to have goofy things to do. It just felt like a calculated idea. They didn't feel really real. I think the only interesting thing that happens with Ray, the only interesting thing about Ray is his weird romance with Evangeline. And which, if you watch the movie, it turns...
Luis is the alligator, right?
Yeah.
He was Michael Leon Woolley. He was black.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then
Right.
James was by Terrence Howard.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
So
Yeah.
we had the black characters, the voices rather, but the point of the character itself.
Yeah.
I felt bad. I liked Ray. I thought Ray made it a little bit more comedic and more easy to swallow,
Yeah.
I liked his relationship with Evangeline. Evangeline or Angeline?
Evangeline.
And I thought it was cute. But I felt bad for the Cajun people, how they were represented in this movie, as and that goes even to the voodoo doctor, which we'll get on that in a second. But the Cajun people were kind of represented kind of like they in a swamp with no teeth, and you know what I'm saying? Just
that's a good point.
I know, I agree with that. No, here I'm kind of glad you actually brought up about Ray, because here's the thing. Even when I first saw it in 2009, while I mostly remember thinking the movie's fine, I'll admit that Ray I liked in 2009. And hey, we already talked about spoilers. So when he died at the end of the movie in 2009, I legitimately was like that actually kind of worked on me. I don't know why, and maybe the fact that his whole feelings about Evangeline, maybe because he's a sweet guy.
Yes, he's such a nice guy. Such a nice guy.
He's a nice guy. He just wants good things for everyone. He's like, tell him, come on, everyone, you got this. And I think that's what made me like Ray, even though he's voiced like Gambit in the X-Men cartoon. And
Come on, share.
But at the same time, so like I was gonna admit, like that probably is the one thing that does work on me. Still, it's like, I like him.
I got a little tear when he became the star. I was like,
that was dope.
That was lovely.
That was it. Yeah, he was lovely. Lovable. He was the little David, right? He was the David of the Goliath of the movie, and that is what really helped continue the film, because to see him and be the little guy trying to save everybody, and Luis being the big, I don't want to use the term doof or whatnot, but like the big, in need of love, and just not understand the cowardly lion. I guess that would be the way to describe him. Yeah. So I agree with what you're saying, Justin.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, I agree too, because again, I love Ray was hilarious to me. Ray was dope. But as we talk about these characters in this cast again, it's like, dude, you had Terrence Howard. You had Terrence Howard there, and you didn't use Terrence Howard enough. Like, I'm sorry, like I respect to Bruno Campos. Again, I support my brown brothers and sisters and everything like that. But they had just switched roles right there. And again, you give a black male lead right there. You have Terrence Howard to Christmas Park. You never like, come on, man. Come on, man. Man, you get this kitchen, man.
Been a long time, man. Hey, no, it's cool, man. It's nice to see you home again, man. Hey, man, what's up with your boy, man? Yeah, man. No, man. Hey, skinny, man. Hustling your tapes over at the drive-in, man.
Come on, man. I'm like, oh, this would have been so fire. This would have been so fire. You would have, he would have hustled the flow, the entire, and the Prince of the Fro. Like, oh, you would have came up so much. You would have came up so much. So it was so dope.
That would have been
a character who I is weird. I have this love-hate relationship with this character. I want to hear y'all opinion on it because I do like her. But at the same time, though, I do not like the way she's portrayed. It's Charlotte. Charlotte.
Which character?
Charlotte, her best friend.
Oh,
okay.
Bro, but because they make Charlotte just straight up like boy crazy or whatever, man crazy and everything. I'm like, can she have a little bit more depth in that? Like, I get that to her post that she wants to like believe in the fairy tale, so I think it's like cool. But at the same time, I'm like, y'all could have so much more fun with this. Like again, go back if you do like that Edna Lewis story of her leaving the South, going to New York City and everything like that, and her best friend goes with her and supports her and they're working together. That could have been like a dope thing or whatnot. Or it's also just like, Charlotte's rich. Why is she working? Why can't she just give her this money for this restaurant like 5 years ago? Like, can't I'm like, homie, I got you. Here's a loan. Looking out.
I don't like that. I don't like that. I didn't like that she became the go-to. She became the helper, the dad helping the mom. Can you make more dresses for her? It's that cliche of Black people can't do nothing by themselves. They always got to have a white outlet. And it goes right back to that beginning thing of you can dream all you want, but you got to work hard for it. But you always got to have somebody white helping you. That's the story that I got, right? Here, I'm gonna give you some extra money if you make these for my the party she was having, and she gets all the money, get her down payment, and then later it's like, I need you to help me kiss this. It's just like it was too much reliability on that girl. You know what I'm saying? I don't even think she needed to be in that. If they were to have the two best friends go to New York, why couldn't she be one from the block?
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? She ain't the only Black girl ever in New Orleans, so why couldn't she have a best friend to go with her with the same dreams? You know, that would have been a good counterpart right there.
I agree with you. I will say. I was gonna say like I agree with you. The only reason why I kind of like played like I don't know the reason why I like the character, I think you do need. Here's the thing: you need both. You need to have like another Black female there, but Charlotte's cool as well because again, you need that Black woman relationship and that friendship right there, and that's dope to see because again, then we get closer to passing the Bechdel test. However, I will say the dope thing about Charlotte being there, but what she falls short at is that allyship. Because the thing, a lot of things as we talked about, especially in 2021, is that we will not succeed a lot of this stuff unless we have allyship of y'all helping us out.
I agree.
Like Black Lives Matter marches where it's like, so here's the thing, white folks, we need y'all to go stand up front because then we know they'll shoot us. So please just block for us real quick. And that was a legit strategy using different marches and whatnot, but it led to a lot of press attention when you started showing like white men and white women being attacked by the police and people was like, oh, this might be a problem. And so the thing about this is you do need that allyship a certain degree. So that's why I do like Charlotte's character. Where I don't like it at is that one, I already brought the fact about her being boy crazy, but again, to reiterate on this is the fact like, homie, Charlotte, you rich. You could have helped her out from the get-go, like, homie, I'm gonna give you this no interest loan. I'll be a silent partner. Let's make this bread. Let's make this green. You get me? And that's what could have happened. So I'm looking like you got all this money, homegirl been working 2 jobs this whole time. Like, but now you need her to make a thing or back end. Like, come on. Like, so that was that.
See, what your point is how she was downplayed completely to be just a rich, ditzy white girl of the time, which is again another cliche, right? Like I'm here, I'm rich, I'm just living my life, I just want to get married and whatever. It's the negative cliche of how women are, you know. So I agree with what you're saying in regards to having them having her character be written a little bit more headstrong or aware. Just even aware. I mean, she was chasing him, and that's the funny part. And I'm gonna let you go, Justin. My fault.
No, it's great. Yeah.
The part where his body starts popping out, and she's sitting there like really like, oh, you know. And I'm just thinking as a woman, like, what is that telling me? You know, well, maybe y'all wouldn't understand, but you know, us women tend to see things like this, and we kind of look past it because we think we want this person, not realizing that this ain't the person who is the right person. It gave that little sense of how so involved in just wanting to have a man that we were willing to look past that big old ear, you know what I'm saying? His big old butt that popped out, you know what I'm saying? Like, and then we just completely turn a blind eye to just, this is not the right person yet we're still following. I'm still trying to get this man, you know. So just those little nuggets of how she was written, I you know.
Yeah, and as you say that, it's like the two female characters we hear from the most, their whole thing is being married and getting with a man.
Mm-hmm.
That's Tiana's arc, and that's all that Charlotte ever wants. And even her mom encouraged her to do that. Justin, we have talked over you. I'm so sorry. Justin, go ahead.
Well, because all I'm doing is piggybacking what you two are saying. Because it's like, I think here's the thing. The fact of the matter is that, like, the fact you're noticing these questions, Johnny, like, hold on. If Charlotte has this money, and they've been friends their entire life, and she knows she's a good cook. Like, so she knows all of these things. And her family, her father loves her too, right? Her father even loves Tiana. So y'all know this, and y'all can back up her skills as a cook. You know she's a hard worker. Why didn't you pay this money up front ahead of time?
Mm-hmm.
You know that. But that's the problem with the movie, right? Because going by what you said, Chris, was like, yes, the other issue with the movie is that it's reliant on the help of white people. And because of that, you have these two conflicting concepts. Again, it's you have these two conflicting concepts. This is why the script is kind of a mess. You have these two conflicting concepts that don't gel to each other because you have this one idea that explains something interesting, but you have this other idea that's more formulaic for your plot because you're so used to it for a Disney movie. And they keep doing this. And that's why the movie feels extremely empty in that regard, because here's the questions you're asking, Johnny, shouldn't be asked, because if they're doing their job right, you know, like if they're doing their job right, we should have found out that Charlotte was going to do this, or John Goodman's character was set to do this for her back then, or some reason. There's a reason why they can't upfront her the money. You could have done that to explain the narrative. Yeah. Instead, you have these two people who have a lot of money, who clearly love her, who clearly support her cooking. But then out of nowhere, it's like, oh, I guess we can fund your thing now. It's like, you get to fund your thing now. She's working 2 jobs.
And that again goes to that cultural aspect of the time, right? Is that we're cool, but we're not equal. So even when you're looking at the racial lines of that, you know, when the scene opens and they're both the same exact age, you know, she has this big old pink dress, and then Tiana has this green dress on, you know, tiny crown, and then tiny gold crown, and then Charlotte has on this massive, you know, big old, I don't even know what you call it, you know, the cone crown or whatnot. So even in that, and I'm thinking of other films where I've seen that relationship of, we know you're good, we know you're worth it, but you're still you know, and again, it goes into the time frame, being that it's the 1920s, racial relations is not the best. It's still Louisiana, it's New Orleans. So the relationship down there, you know, I'm not a historian of New Orleans, but I don't know how the dynamics would have been for a white family to give money to a black girl. You know what I'm saying?
That's an excellent point. That's an excellent point. And I feel this is, again, going back to the problem of why didn't you contact a black writer in the beginning of the process? And so here's the thing, like, I was reading up on the making of the film. It was Musco's and Clemens' idea to set this film in New Orleans. That was their call. They originally, Disney wanted to do a regular Frog Prince movie where it's going to be Europe again, etc. And then they were like, isn't that played out? Didn't you guys play that card enough? Why don't you change it up? So they came up with the idea of maybe moving it to New Orleans.
You know what, they probably did it though, right, Justin? This movie came out in 2009, so they were probably writing this in 2000, maybe 4 or 5. So this is right around the time when New Orleans experienced the Hurricane Katrina and the levees like that. So they're kind of like, let's do this for the city of New Orleans, which again is dope, and you have all these dope intentions. But the thing about it is, though, is that it kind of goes to like where you fell short, is that you didn't hire black writers, you didn't hire women writers to be in this room, to have a black woman writer be there. Because if you had hired them to be there, you would have caught all of these mistakes. Because Chris, I agree with your point about like them giving them this money could have been like suspect or whatnot, but I'm not willing to give the writers the credit they thought that deeply into it.
No, they definitely didn't.
Yeah, because if they thought deeply into that, they would have fixed a lot of other things. But
this is why I feel like it's kind of going back to the point of like, yes, they brought in a writer who's black and who also wrote on Treasure Planet. That's probably where he met him. Rob Edwards. It kind of reminds me of, like, you know about the recent HBO movie Witches with Anne Hathaway?
Yeah.
Okay, so that movie, Yeah, that's a Robert Zemeckis movie. It's a remake of an old movie that was based on a Roald Dahl movie, and they moved that movie to the 1930s South, right? And they changed the leads into into black characters, and that's a case where they brought I'm blanking out on the creator of Blackish's name right now.
Oh, Kenya Barris.
They brought Kenya Barris to write the script, and it's one of those cases where I wonder, okay, when did Kenya start writing this script?
Yeah.
The same issues arise from Witches that I notice here is that you want to acknowledge some of this culture and some of this history, but also you didn't have him brought on early enough. And how much does he know?
Right.
Like, what's his own personal knowledge of that time period to actually find a way to integrate this story to this old story? Because the original version of The Witches it's completely European, completely British. It's Roald Dahl. It's the writer of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So what Zemeckis tried to do with that movie is he tried to incorporate more witch doctor elements to the concept. Okay, sure. But it's clear that they didn't do a lot of research and put a lot of time into it to really flesh that out. That's why it kind of feels going on here with Princess and the Frog. Musker and Clemens had the idea of putting it in New Orleans. And I think you're on point, Johnny. It's thinking that the Hurricane Katrina was a factor of the inspiration that they thought about it. And hey, again, heart's in the right place. Intentions are good. But again, these are two white guys. So you were having, you didn't bring a black writer in. You didn't bring in Rob Edwards or a female black, definitely specifically a female black writer to come in with knowledge of this time period, knowledge of this history, maybe love and respect to put these things to make it feel integrated. What this movie consistently feels like is we did our homework. So here's the thing that's accurate. But then here's our Disney shit. That's what this movie feels like repeatedly. It's like, here's the homework. See, we did it. But then here's our Disney shit. And to add a little bit to Charlotte, the only element I thought that was fascinating about Charlotte for me was she represents like a specific concept of a Disney fan who's super into wishing upon the star, and that's it. And they did not do much beyond that. There's no room for that in this movie. It's not about her. But I thought, oh, that's sort of interesting in a weird meta commentary on Disney princesses and looking and wishing upon a star. But they didn't do much with that. She's mostly, like Johnny said, like a mostly one-note character that has a lot of problems when you start thinking about it.
No, for sure. And so right now we're going to go into our rating, whereas on the show, we rate the Disney properties that we watch is either woke, meaning that it's diverse and inclusive. We're doing a lot of great things, not just like on screen, but behind the screens as well. Waking, where we see they're attempting to do something and try to get some things right and they're like on their way, or sleep as shit, where they're like, nah, son, nah, you just failing right now. So
I say they're on their way. They're on their way.
They in the shower.
There it is. I'm running 15 minutes late. Nah, you later than 15 minutes. So it was like either woke, waking, or sleep as shit. So right now we're gonna take a quick break and we'll see you right after this.
Let's get dangerous.
Woo! What's up, everybody? And we're back. So now we're about to reveal our ratings. It's either woke, waking, or sleep as shit. So we're going to show our ratings to the camera on 3. Everybody ready?
No.
Oh.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, here we go. On 3. 1, 2, and 3. All right, show it to the camera.
Mine's backwards, so you're going to have to...
Oh, don't worry. It fixes it automatically. We're good.
Okay.
All right. So 2 wakings and a sleep. I'm awakened. Yeah.
Okay, so Chris, you're our guest. Go ahead. Why'd you give it? You go first. Why'd you give it sleep?
Oh, because anytime you do something for the financial and not the authenticity of it, it's never going to work out right. So even though they got some, merchandising type of business deals on the back end of it, the actual film itself they just didn't do it right. They didn't honor it. They didn't honor the history of the city, the history of the people, the history of the religion. So when you're not true to what you're true to the arts and the culture of the storyline, then you're going to lose. So for me, that's a sleep. I mean, we're not, the finances on the back end is something else, but the whole goal was to make money. And when you're trying to do it for that, it's always going to be a negative in it. So that's my take on it.
For sure. Appreciate you're validated to it. Justin?
Hey, that's a fair point. I think if we're just talking just movie by itself, Sleep is a fair rating on that. But if we're talking about the effort and the intention, even though it's money, I'm with you. This is money. But at the end of the day, there is a Black princess that Disney has. There is one. I mean, there's one. That's better than nothing to a certain degree. And it's baby steps. It's baby steps. Hear me out. I got, as an Asian American, people are going to tell me I have Mulan. I don't really have Mulan. I don't really have Maui, or I don't have really like Moana per se as a Filipino, because it's a little confusing for Southeast Asian discussion. Raya is a hopeful. That's coming out in about 2 months. So at the minimum for me, I'm seeing the longest time for Asian representation for princesses. I only got Mulan. I got Mulan. That was it. And there's more Asians than that. You know, I'm Southeast Asian. So it took many years. So I'm, there still needs to be more than one. But I'm glad to see that. For me, I can see, well, it looks like Raya looks like she's going to be identified as Southeast Asian. And so I got someone that's going to represent my family, my culture. One is like a C grade, barely, or D plus grade, right? That's at least there. So at the minimum, there is one. So I got to give it, I guess, if I can be honest, barely waking, if that's fair. But there at least is a Black princess that Disney has, as opposed to no Black princesses at all. Zero. And they're going to keep pouting that Lion King shit. Or at the minimum, like Black Panther. And they'll say, look, Shuri, But at the minimum, one. And there's effort. It's effort. It's not great effort because it needs so much work, and it just shows the problem of not bringing in people of color early in the creative process to make an authentic movie that doesn't feel like a checklist, that doesn't feel like we did our notes, see, we did it. No, like it's such a baby step. But for these big billion-dollar corporations, baby steps takes fucking forever. So I'm giving them the waking because, well, you at least did it. It's not great, but you at least did it. And that's how I feel about it.
I feel you. So for me, I gave it I gave it waking for a lot of those same reasons. And the thing about it is though, is that like the whole, so when it comes to financials, to be real, any racial progress that we're going to make 9 times out of 10 is because of financial reasons. You think about why did Jackie Robinson get into baseball? They did not put Jackie Robinson in baseball because of the right reasons. They did it because they wanted that black dollar.
Right.
And they also was like, we want to win games. And them brothers in the Negro League are knocking it out of the park. So so that's part of the reason why a lot of times finances will come into play.
Right.
Now, so the thing about it is, so I can see that. And then when it comes to the writer's room and all these different things like that, people are like, oh, it was 2009. Real talk, fuck that noise. The reason why I say this is because of Mel Brooks. Mel Brooks, when he made Blazing Saddles, people think oh, Mel Brooks wrote Blazing Saddles. No, he didn't. He would have got Richard Pryor. And that's the reason why that movie is so funny as it is. Right. Now, today, some people see it as problematic for a variety of different reasons. I understand. But the thing about it is that when he made that film, though, Mel Brooks knew, was like, bro, we got to get a black voice in there because this is their culture. They're going to bring this in. And he brought up in a black lead and did all these different things like that. And so the thing about it is that Mel Brooks did that back in the 70s. So something made in 2009 should be far, far, far ahead. Yeah. But you're not, though, because, again, you're still making a lot of those mistakes. Now, the part of the reason why I gave it waking is because, to what Justin said, is like when a little black girl goes to Disneyland, she knows there's a princess there that's going to look like her.
True.
And then with the Christmas said, when that scene came up in Wreck-It Ralph, one of the dopest things that people praised on the internet was that Tiana was sitting there with her natural hair out.
Yep. And
that was just so dope to see. And I was like, that's right, sister. That's right. Show off that fro. That's what's up. And the thing about it is, though, is that it gives me hope that they can do another Tiana story and just scrap this whole thing and do it differently. When they make the live action, The Princess and the Frog, take the suggestions we talked about, take some other ideas, bring in actual Black writers, do a bunch of different things, and just tell that story differently. You can give the same title, The Princess and the Frog, and maybe that's just the name of her restaurant, but you can do it a whole bunch of totally differently, where there's no magic or nothing, no shouting down voodoo, a bunch of different stuff. But again, just scrap all that. But the thing about it is, though, is that you can figure out a way to possibly do it.
Right.
And then again, the reason why I give
make a whole another princess. I'm sorry. Just make a whole another princess.
Make another princess. Yeah.
Exactly. And then part of the reason why I give away as well is because it doesn't pass my with a wire test. Chris only everything called the wire test. So it's similar to the Bechdel test. The Bechdel test is when two women have conversations that are not about men. The wire test is when two people of color have conversations not about white people. And so on here, do we have that? Yeah. Tiana talked to her mom. Tiana talked to her dad. She talked to like the people in the restaurant and everything like that. So, there were those moments where it's like, cool. Think about this though. And then with Prince Nassim, I don't know where Prince Nassim is, but I can assume he is a fan of color. So again, they had conversations about stuff. Problem it is though, is that again, the reason why it doesn't get woke is for all the reasons we brought up. One, passing here's the thing. I barely say this passes the Bechdel test because anytime she talked to her mom was about her getting married and maybe having kids. Anytime Charlotte was about Charlotte getting a man, all these different things like that. And then even Mama Udi was like, girl, you need a man. I was like, no, she doesn't. And so to be real with you, I do not believe this passed the Bechdel test, in my opinion. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments, please. The passing the wire test, just barely passes that one. And then the thing about this though is that again, we can progress forward, as y'all said. We need to get more princesses, more of these. Because the thing about this though, you're right, Justin. Everybody needs a movie. The thing about this though, we need a Filipino princess. We need a princess of Chinese origin. We need an actual African princess. We need a Brazilian princess.
We need a Latino princess.
Exactly.
Like a proper one. I know there's one in the Disney Channel, but there's not a feature film one.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the thing about this though, y'all just need to keep making these and putting these out and when you do them, bring in the people of that culture that make this the right way.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's the biggest lesson to take away from this.
And be specific in the culture that you're representing.
Yeah.
I think that's very important too. If you're going to represent the Asian culture, be specific in what part of Asia you're representing. Because me and Parker was talking about this before, about the geographics of our new vice president, of how people are represented. Do people represent her as being Indian or Southeast Asian? And that in itself is a confusion, especially, people don't be knowing their geography. So when you're making these films for little girls, be specific. This I'm a princess from India. I'm a princess from Vietnam. I'm a princess from, wherever. And be specific to that particular area, and then get the writers from that space to write that story. Versus I'm gonna have an Asian princess and then we're just gonna get all kinds of people to write it.
No, and that's that is, and sadly, that's a normal thing at Disney. They'd rather come up with the idea. They'll say all the time, we'll throw in the money of doing the research and taking the animators and the writers to the country or whatever. We're showing you how authentic it is. Listen, I love Moana. I do too. And Musker and Clemens directed that one too. So they clearly did a better job on that movie than this one. And they did all the right homework. They talked to a bunch of folks in Hawaii and Pacific Islanders and etc. They did all the homework. But you know who I didn't notice in the writing credits? Anyone who's Pacific Islander.
There you go.
Anyone. And they did better here than the movie that shall not be named. But but it's still a case of you're telling me there's not a Pacific Islander writer who loves Disney movies that has a script about their culture?
Yeah.
You're telling me that person doesn't exist? BS. That person exists.
Exactly.
They wrote that movie. They're waiting for that chance. So, and it's,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go. I'm finished. Yeah,
I agree, because I say the other part about that too is also just two things. That one, to Chris's point, exactly right, because you want to inspire those princesses and whatnot, and not to forget our brothers and sisters in the LGBTQI community. So our brothers and sisters know who don't identify, but anybody can be a princess. And so the thing about it is, there's a lot of people who have eyes on this, and the thing about it is just you just want to represent people in a positive light, like you should. And then on that last point too, though, it's also about important to have these people behind the scenes, because if you want the black dollar, if you want the dollar from these color communities, you need to put something back into them. And so when you hire writers and directors and makeup artists and artists of these communities and whatnot, you're helping bring economic growth and possibility to those communities. You're literally helping them grow. So imagine again, going back to this movie, Tiana was just Charlotte was yo, homie, I got you. Here's a no interest loan. Make your dreams come true. I got you. This is support. And then boom, imagine the progress she can make from that. And the thing about this, that's what you got to be doing a lot of times. So but again,
Well, John, you brought up Black Panther so many times, and for good reason. Like it's a movie that like it entirely 90% in front and behind the camera, black people in that making the movie, and that movie was nominated for an Oscar. That movie, like it blew a box office. It became a cultural touch point for new kids, generations of no matter what color, they love Black Panther, they love T'Challa, they love Shuri, etc. And the cool thing about that, again, that movie made money. So the power of money means that I'm really pulling hope with Shang-Chi, the next Marvel movie about a person of color. Again, people behind the scenes, mostly Asian, people in front of the camera, mostly Asian. My hope with that movie is a similar effect of a character that represents Asian culture, Chinese culture in this regard, and in a movie that will hopefully do the similar effect. And because Marvel has that impact, and I think Simu Liu recently, who plays Shang-Chi, he has admitted to the fact that like we wouldn't have gotten this if it wasn't for Black Panther's success.
Yeah.
And like Mulan was not done with that same care. The Mulan 2020, there wasn't anyone of Asian descent writing the screenplay, not Asian filmmaker, not directing the film or doing the production design, etc. And that movie suffered.
Yeah.
Suffered. And the hope with Shang-Chi is hopefully that, they do have people of that culture writing, producing, directing, starring, acting, etc. in that movie to, and yeah, it's a big Marvel comic book movie. It's a martial arts movie. It's going to be all those things. But at the same time, it will feel at least like that has a stronger attempt than Mulan. And I am looking forward to that, So yeah, like this is a trickle down.
People will check what's wrong.
People will always check what's wrong.
Yeah. And the fact that the cast is and everything is predominantly written by the people who it's about, it's going to be checked versus with Tiana. It was just a lot of stuff that slid under, because if there was women writers there, women would have been like, no, you know what I'm saying? Or
absolutely
women animators there, no, let's fix her hair, because that was, you know what I'm saying? So I agree with what you're saying. We do need to have more of a. Why are you shaking your head, Parker?
No, I agree with you, because it's the hair thing. Because I agree.
Oh yeah. I picked up on that wave. Like, I wish I can get some curls like that.
Because I was remember when she went home from the very beginning movie. She goes home and she jumps in bed. She lays down, and I'm like, I ain't never seen a black woman go to bed without wrapping her hair first.
That part.
I've like literally like I've seen my mom two ways, and I've seen my mom the same way every night and every morning with her hair wrapped. Oh, you going to bed? Okay, see you, mom. Oh, you just woke up, mom. Literally. So like when she went just passed on the bed, I was like, what is that? What's happening right now? I don't understand what's happening.
Right. Well, I think, and another reason why I say it sleeps, because not just the financial thing, but there's nothing to aspire to as a woman of color in that film. There was nothing for me to look at and say, oh, I want to be like, shit, I want to be Angeline. Like that, I want to be a shining star in the sky. That was the only thing that I think was the takeaway for that film. Like, going back to Black Panther, it created an idea of what could be. You know what I'm saying? It made people wish that's what they had at the time. It added to that reality that everyone wanted. This didn't. Like, I couldn't relate to her, not even just being black, but being in New Orleans. Like, there's a lot of Creoles running around there. You know what I'm saying? So I don't even know where I would fit in, being black, being light skinned, because colorism is the whole issue. So anyway, that's the whole It wasn't relatable. And it again goes to that flatlining of get to being the princess, kiss at the end with your prince happily ever after. And that's part of the other thing of probably why it was no buy-in. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It just wasn't a buy-in to, it didn't touch on any type of dreams as a woman, especially in 2009. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We was doing stuff. We were doing things.
They needed it. That's the problem with this movie.
Obama, Michelle Obama was up there.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. Again, that's the problem with this movie, right? It's like it's written directed by folks who were so used to doing it the same way,
right?
That they're so used to doing it the Disney formula way that it suffers narratively for that exact reason. And funny enough with Moana, the thing I liked about Moana is that it doesn't do a lot of the problems that this movie has.
Right.
And again, same directors.
But I'm going to say possibly because it went on to the bigger story of people. But, and I know we ain't talking. No, I ain't going to say that. But I was going to say because the storyline was good, but the promotion was all about Maui. So that's you know what I'm saying? But
I mean, you got The Rock. Disney has The Rock. They gotta like flaunt The Rock as much as they can.
Which is fine. But the story of why Moana is so lovable is because she taps into what all girls are going through. It's wanting to get out of the normal rut of just being a girl who has to be, and this is my job, and I want to find something else. And it tapped into that storyline of wanting more and following your heart. And, again, going back to The Wiz or The Wizard of Oz, well, I'm going to say The Wiz. But going back to The Wiz, it was always in you the whole time. You know what I'm saying? And connecting nature and that's why I think Moana did so well, because that storyline was not about kissing the man. If the man wasn't the savior. And even with Frozen, the man wasn't the savior. It was sisters working together to create the happy ending. And I think that's why those two films did exceptionally well.
Agreed.
The traditional Disney thing. And if they use those formulas to where it's not necessarily about even, I don't want to say that because I probably
but I get what you're saying 100%. And it's by this point they didn't learn those lessons yet. Mm-mm. That's the thing. This sadly needed to underperform for them to start realizing we just can't write this shit the same way anymore.
Right.
We can't keep sticking with this formula anymore. And that's why like Frozen and Moana break the mold. And it's like it doesn't do those things. That's what I agree with you on the Frozen end. I know Frozen's a punching bag right now because everyone loves like to hit on Frozen because of it's everywhere. But I'm with you. I think the ending of Frozen is part of the thing. I sort of like put it on a better pedestal. Like, well, yeah, but that's not what it's about. It's not about her falling in love. It's about the two sisters connecting. And Moana definitely isn't about that.
Right.
But this movie, Princess and the Frog, sadly, they didn't get there. They didn't know. They didn't trust it. Mm-mm. They didn't trust that the history was enough. They didn't trust that the culture was enough. They didn't trust that a character who was Black was enough.
Right.
They had to.
I like that.
They were scared. They were scared. And that's the reason why the movie underperformed. They just were like, be safe, and say we're doing something progressive. And that's the problem.
No, I agree. And the thing about this, though, I don't even think they really learned from this, because I think the lesson they probably took from this, to be honest with you, it wasn't the fact that they didn't bring in like people of color and women, all these different things like that. The lesson they took from this is like, y'all, we can't do 2D animation anymore. And that
is the first lesson they learned. Yeah,
that's not the lesson they should have took away, but that is what you see happen, because we haven't got another 2D like feature-length animation like from them in years. And I think that's because of the reason. Because if you look at what came after, when they got to do Frozen again, that was like 3D and all these different things like that. They were putting women power at characters. But then after you do that with Frozen, you're like, okay, so when we do Moana, we got to do the same thing, a strong female lead. But the thing about it is, though, is that then when they go do Mulan, the remake later on, they're not taking those same lessons they took from Black Panther and all those other things. So like, sadly enough, Disney isn't learning the lessons that they should be learning from the situation. Hopefully in the future they will. And hopefully, again, we get something later coming down the line. As you said, there's a couple movies coming this year. So fingers crossed. But
I wouldn't even give Disney the Black Panther credit. That's all Marvel, in my eyes.
Well, that's all Ryan Coogler, low key. They didn't expect it to be
that's Ryan Coogler. That's Coogler and Feige agreeing to it. That's
100%. Justin, my sister alarm is going off. Someone's in the house.
Okay.
I gotta go.
Hey, thanks so much for showing up on the show. We really appreciate you as a guest, Christmas. Thank you. But we gotta. Johnny, are you good?
I'll see you next time. Thank you for coming on. Bye, y'all. CP.